Hello, hello. Having to admit everyone. Used to be people automatically were in. Okay. Good. Now let's learn about about the flood. So what do we say after the flood? There was the rainbow. We learned a little bit about the rainbow already, but maybe we'll learn a little bit more about the rainbow today. Here it goes. I talked to you a little bit about this before, but all right, so what do we see? God makes this flood and he kills everybody. Kills all the animals, all the birds. Didn't kill a fish. And all that's left is Noah. So Noah comes out to this destroyed world. And so he's worried maybe God is going to do it again. Who knows? Who knows if the next time is going to be any better? So maybe there's no sense in building the whole thing over. So God said, don't worry about it. I'm going to make a covenant. Vayomer Elokim Zot Ot Brit. This is the sign of the covenant. Right? This word Brit. Oh, right? This sign of the Brit. God is making a Brit. The Jewish people also have a Brit. You know, they also have a Brit. The circumcision is the Brit God made with Abraham. And this word Brit is a strange idea of a Brit. In other words, it's not enough that God just gives his word or his promise. If God says something, it's eternal. Now, here God makes a Brit. What's the Brit? A Brit is an agreement, unconditional agreement. In other words, God makes an agreement with Noah and that he's never going to destroy the world again. That's the agreement. No matter what everybody does, everybody can be as decadent and as perverted. God's not going to destroy the whole entire world. He might do it, and he has his own ways of doing it, but he's not going to destroy the whole world. That's what God said. This is the Brit. What is the Brit that God makes? Vayomer Elokim Zot Brit asher ani noten b'nei u'b'neichem u'bein kol nefesh chaya, between you and all living things, asher itchem, that are with you, in the ark, right? Noah took all these animals in the ark, and now there's going to be a new world for them. So God said, all these creations that are going to be here, you don't have to worry. I'm not going to do this again. What I just did, this is a one-time thing. I'm putting the sign. Otabrit is not. It's not going to be. It's not just an agreement, a verbal agreement. It's going to be a physical agreement. Otbrit. So, is there a corresponding term in English, a brit? I don't know if there is such a thing. It's an unconditional agreement. A blood agreement. I don't know what they call it. I don't know. Maybe you can figure out some word. If there's a counterpart. So it says for the Dorot Olam. Interesting, this word Dorot is written without Vavs. It says the Dorot. There should be Lamed Dalet Vav and another Vav. So Rashi is going to talk about this. Here we go. Rashi, Ledorot Olam Nichnav Chaser. It's written missing two Vavs. Let me move this thing out of the way here. It's missing two Vavs. Oh, why is it missing two Vavs? Sheyesh Dorot, there are some generations, they don't need the sign. What is the sign again? The sign is to remind God not to pay attention to details, not to pay attention, to overlook. Right? You make an agreement with someone. This is an agreement that I promise I'm never going to get mad at you again. And the person slaps you in the face and he tears your garments and spits at you and does everything, embarrasses you, shames you. You made an agreement. You have to always remember this agreement. Wow, I really made a mistake. But an agreement is an agreement. You made an eternal agreement. So God says he always has to have some sort of a sign to remind him not to destroy the world. There's times when he would like to destroy the world. And it says that really every time that we see a rainbow in the sky, it's a sign that God would like to destroy the world. But he doesn't, because he made this covenant with Noah. Okay, he also made a covenant later on with Abraham. And in the Torah also it says it's a brit, luchot a brit. There's a sign of the brit. Nevertheless, every time we say a rainbow, and it says that's one of the reasons why you're not supposed to tell someone else, look at that beautiful rainbow. Very hard not to do, because the fact is a rainbow is pretty amazing, pretty beautiful. It says, look at but you make a blessing. There's a blessing that you make on the rainbow, right? And the blessing is that you remember the agreement. Zocher habrit. What is it? Zocher brit. Ne'aman bebrito v'mekayim b'mamoro. Something like that. Look at Mama. Have to look and see what it is. That God, you remember the covenant that you made. So every time that there's a rainbow in the sky, it's a sign that of our shame, right? That we're not doing what we're supposed to do. So it says you're not supposed to tell somebody else, look at that. It's this word dorot is written missing. Sheyesh dorot. There are some generations that they didn't need the sign. Tzadikim gamorim hoyu, because they were totally tzadikim. Like the generation of Chezkiyahu Melech, the generation of Chezkiyahu, the king of, he was supposed to be Mashiach, Chezkiyahu, and the generation of Shimon Bar Yochai. Generation of Shimon Bar Yochai, right? I have to tell you, I have to admit that I really don't know that much about this. I mean, that what I said, that if there's a rainbow nowadays, it's a sign that we're sinners. I'm not 100% sure that that's really true. But nevertheless, the fact is you're not supposed to say to someone else that look at the. In other words, the rainbow originated from the fact that God had to remind himself that we don't deserve to live. It says there were some generations, Chezkiyahu Melech, it says all these prophecies that you see in the prophets and Isaiah and everything like that about Mashiach, either it's talking about all the Jewish people or it's talking about Chezkiyahu Melech. So, and also the generation of Shimon Bar Yochai. Okay, this is the sign. Let's see what the Rambam. There's a very interesting Ramban. Maybe you can call it an oath. Could be. Here, let's look at the Malbim. The Malbim says, Vayomer Elokim, after that he made this agreement, Shabritu Atzmo Shavua, the covenant, the agreement, is the oath that God took. But he said that there's never going to be another flood in the world, and really there won't be any more destruction. God said from now on the seasons are going to go the way they're supposed to be, and etc. So not only a flood, God's not going to destroy the world in any way. And more, then God made the sign of the Brit. That the sign is a thing that people who make oaths between them, they make a sign to remember the Brit so that they won't forget. That's why it says oath Brit. Now let's see the Ramban. Ramban says something pretty interesting. Listen to this. Zotot Brit asher ani noten. This is the Brit. Hamashmet seems to imply that I'm making the rainbow for the first time. It was up to now, I'm making a new thing. Here it is. I'm inventing something, and it's going to be the rainbow. Up to then, there's never been a rainbow. Lo yakeshet, there's never been a rainbow in the clouds from the time of creation. By the time now, this seems to be what's implied. It's not. You see, the Rambam says it's not. Now, Bor Hashem Chadasha, now God is making a new thing to make a keshet, Shemayim, to make a rainbow in heaven, biyom anan, and a cloudy day. And it says the reason that I'm making this new strange thing, ki keshet lo aso shiu raglov lamayla. Usually the feet of a bow is mainly a weapon of destruction, right? It's a weapon of hunting, or a weapon of war. So usually the way you do it is you point the round end at the enemy, not the feet, not the two ends. You don't point that at the enemy. But by pointing the two ends at us, at the earth, it's like God is showing us that Yishlach chitzav v'yafitzeim ba'oretz. Usually, if the bow part of it is pointed at the earth, and it shows that God is mad and he wants to shoot his arrows at us. But if he makes it the opposite, to show that he's not going to shoot from heaven at us, so it is the way of people who are fighting with one another. You open up your hands, your arms to the other person like a inverted bow to a person that's opposite them. Hugging a person, that's not exactly what he says, but that's the implications. Also, a rainbow in the heaven, it doesn't have a string on it. Usually a bow has a string, a yeter has a string, and this string is what you put the arrow on and you pull it back. That's where the power comes in the whole thing. It does it the yakonen chitzim in order to intend and shoot these arrows at him. And we, al korchenu namin, we have to believe. Okay, period. That's it. So that's the sign, right? A brand new thing that God made in the heavens. Says the Ramban, v'anachnu al korchenu namin l'divrei Yavanim. We have no choice, but we have to believe the Greek scientists, she milat hashemesh, that from the heat, the rays of the sun, ba'avir in the air halach, in damp air, yiyah keshet, betolda. It's a natural thing. It didn't start with Noach. Say the Greeks, they can explain the whole thing. They can even make examples of how the sun, like you see the evaporation from the sea or something like that. You can see sometimes there's like a color. Because if you put a vessel of water in front of the sun, you can see sometimes what it looks like a rainbow. And if you look more, you can understand. You can understand that the Greeks are right. Right? That what we thought that now God is making a new sign, we were wrong. The Torah doesn't say that he made a new sign. It's not a new thing that he invented. This idea of the rainbow is a natural phenomenon. Because God said, I have put. God said, this is going to be the sign that I made between you and us, the Dorot Olam. We'll see it's the next sentence. That kashti, let's see here. That kashti natati, my rainbow, I have put in the clouds. In other words, it was there before. It's not a new thing. Ani natati. Umilat kashti, and also what it says, my rainbow, it seems to indicate that it was already there from before. God said it's already mine. Therefore, we have to make up a proper explanation of the Torah. What we said before, that God is making up a new invention and he's making the rainbow. It's not so. Also, if you look in Pirkei Avos, it says that the rainbow was there from in the Bein Hashemashos. It was there in the beginning of creation. The 10 things that were born, that were created right before Shabbos came in. Therefore, we have to say like this: Hakeshet asher natati ba'anan, that a rainbow that I put in the sky from the day of creation, tiyem min hayom hazeh, from now on it's going to be a sign of a brit between me and you. That all the time that I was saying, now it's going to have a new meaning. It was there before, but didn't have any meaning. Now it's going to have a new meaning. Every time I show it, it's going to be a brit shalom, a brand new covenant between me and you. And if you ask a question of all this, okay, good. So it existed before. Why does that have to be the sign? Why doesn't he can say, listen, you know what? The mountains are a sign of my love for you. I'm not going to destroy the world, right? The mountains or the clouds or something like that. If it was always there, so why pick this? What's the reason that God decided to pick a rainbow, liot ot? Hu atam ala gal. It's the same reason as like Abraham said to, what was it, Avimelech, Eid hagalazeh, that this heap of stones will be a testimony, a matzeva, because everything that you can already see, skipping a little bit, and to remember something that was a vow between them, this is called a sign. In other words, the thing was already there, it already existed, and he said from now on it's going to have a new meaning to it. Okay, so now he explains why. 1 second. Okay, he brings down from a Midrash Rabbah, and he says, I want to go on to the Malbim. There's another beautiful Malbim over here. Just want to show you 1 second. Okay. I put the Malbim. I put my thing, okay, so Malbim asked the same question. Behold, the rainbow is a natural thing. He said how it happens. He explains. Sometimes when the rays of the sun come through a thin cloud, then you see that the water starts to make like a mist, and you can see a rainbow. And so you can also see, even just generally, just take water and make a mist out of it, and you can see water, that this is a known, make the conditions and you'll see a rainbow. So therefore, what is the rainbow? The rainbow is when the clouds prevent a little bit the light from going through, and it goes through. But the problem is you have to have thin clouds. Only if there are thin clouds, then the sun can go through, and not thick clouds. Lo ananim avim, and not thick clouds, excuse me. No ananim showing she'en b'yacholot, then the sun cannot go through. Then you can't see through the clouds, you can't see the sunlight going through. Okay, so it says, the fact is that before the flood, that used to rain once every 40 days. Once every 40 days, there came the sun. When did the flood occur? The flood occurred like something like 1,500 years, 1,600 years, something like that, after the world was created. Well, it says once every 40 years, there was a rain. Once every 40 years, there was rain. At that time, so in that course of that 40 years, the clouds got very, very thick, and they were very dark, and they covered the whole world. And when Kol Kador Oretz, and then when it would rain in tremendous flood, like the monsoons, until that it was possible you couldn't see any cloud, any rainbow, for two reasons. Number one, because the clouds were so thick up to the time it started to rain, and because all the time that there was rain, as these thick clouds, they covered the whole earth so that the sun should not shine through. So you couldn't see a cloud coming through. So according to the laws of nature, these thick clouds were so physical that the physicality overpowered the light. Light couldn't come through it.
Once every 40 days or 40 years, Rolf?
Here it says it once every 40 years. That's what he says.
Wow.
Rak yored rak echad la'arba'im shana. Said it came down once every 40 years. Okay, listen, people lived in there until 900 years old. So, so it would rain. It wouldn't rain that many times. Listen, there's places in the world where there never comes rain, right? There's deserts and places like that where there's never rain. In fact, it says that in Egypt, there was no rain, that they lived totally from the Nile River. Israel was unique that it lives totally from rain, right? Rain. There's all the rainy season, and we all pray for rain according to the seasons of Israel. Okay, that was before the flood, but after the flood, everything got changed. And the physicality of the world got weakened. So this is, in other words, the physical world changed according to the spiritual status of the people. And this is what we read a lot about in Chassidut, and it comes from the Zohar, that the 40 days of the flood of Noach, that corresponds to the 40 sa'ah of a mikvah. And that caused the purification of the whole entire world. A lot of animals died. They died because they couldn't take the purification. They couldn't take it. It was just too much. Until Geshem Yored Kadarko, until the rain then started coming down regularly like it does now. In other words, as soon as the clouds weren't that thick, clouds didn't hold that much rain. So as soon as the clouds got a little bit filled, so they would empty out immediately on the earth, and the clouds were much finer, and they would make a mist, and therefore you could see the rainbow. The Rebbe always brings down that from the Zohar, it also says that when you see the rainbow, you can wait for Mashiach. Rainbow, wait for Mashiach, because that's the whole idea of the rainbow, is that the light is able to permeate the physicality. So it says, therefore, the clouds weren't so much that they were thick, so that the clouds never became so thick that they could hide the light. How much more so that they never became so thick that they could make a flood that would cover the whole world. Simultaneously, also, huchlash koach hagufim, also the power of the physicality in the world became weaker. V'yitchazek, and became stronger, spirituality and soul power. Until she'ein teva ha'oretz muchan el mabul. Until nowadays, it's impossible that people can get so depraved, so many people to be depraved, until there can be a mabul. I guess in the time, listen, you can't get much more depraved than the Germans were in World War II. That was like the ultimate, I think, level of depravity that you could possibly have. But the whole world wasn't depraved. There was one group of people that became depraved. It was several groups, actually. The Japanese were pretty terrible. I think the Japanese were in some ways worse than the Germans. If you read some stories about that, it was just incredible, the experiments they did. In any case, so there were two groups, okay. But it was nothing like before the flood. Before the flood, everybody was just debauched. As it says, nature of the world has changed, and similarly, the nature of the clouds has changed. There's no reason for the clouds to be thick because of sins, because spirituality now is a little bit stronger than physicality. So the world became, and that could be the reason why Abraham really thought that he could convince the whole world. Abraham and Noah, Abraham came, what, a couple of years, a 100 years after the flood. He lived in the same time that Noah did. They lived together like, what is it, 60 years or something together. This was the sign of the rainbow in general. It was a sign that the physicality of the world had become less thick and opaque. And that from now, there wouldn't be it would be possible for people to do tshuva. I mean, you have to realize that what happened, people did sins. So God could have said, everybody, listen, I'm going to bring a flood. I'm going to destroy everybody, do tshuva. Nobody did it. They couldn't. They couldn't do tshuva. It was impossible for them. They had become so certain of themselves and so decadent that it was impossible for any spirituality, any feeling of a creator to enter into their lives. That's what it says at Kashti Natati Banan. This is the sign between me and the earth, that it's a sign that the nature of the earth changed. The actual physicality changed, became different. The Malbim. Pretty amazing. So that's only just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, there's so much mystery that's hidden here about the rainbow. And I'm sure everybody here has seen a rainbow. It's really quite astounding to see a rainbow. It's really quite astounding. It's totally like out of place. You can see a rainbow, all of a sudden all these colors are just shining. Naturally sometimes you see like flowers that are that color. But such a thing up in the heavens, it's just totally not understandable. Of course, you understand refraction of light and things like that. So it makes total sense, that light is, but on the other hand, it also doesn't make so much sense how light is all these different beautiful colors inside of it. I guess if you learn the laws of Isaac Newton, what they say was big at that, right? He wrote a lot of books about what is it called, refraction and things like that. I never learned that, but that is the amazing thing of the rainbow. So according to what it says over here, it seems that what he's saying is a little bit different than what the Ramban is saying. The Ramban, they both agree that it was natural, but it seems that the Ramban is saying that there always was a rainbow. And that the rainbow, after the flood, God said it's going to be a sign. And the Malbim is saying that it's true, rainbow is a natural thing, but there never was a rainbow before because the world was too thick. The physicality of the world was too thick. That's what he's saying. Good. Let us go now and learn some laws of Shabbat. All right, we began this yesterday. So let's continue. Yud Dalet and Tesvav are really together. A vessel that has in it something warm. And it's a Yad Soletis bowl. Yad Soletis bowl means like it's 110 degrees. We said, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein said, it's between 110 degrees, 160 degrees. Different opinions. But anyway, it's so hot you can't touch it. I mean, let's just, like I said yesterday, you can take an example. I don't know if you've ever been in a place that's 110 degrees. Have you ever been in a place? I don't think I've ever been in a place, even in Israel, I don't think I've ever been 110 degrees. That's pretty hot, 110 degrees. Could be maybe once, twice, I don't know. With all the global warming and all this stuff. In any case, 110 degrees, I don't think I've ever been. That's 110 degrees Fahrenheit we're talking about. Let me see, what is that? Let's see. Fahrenheit to Celsius, that is Fahrenheit, there we go. 100, just give me a second. That's 38 degrees Celsius. Maybe I have actually. Okay, that's 100 degrees. Oh yeah, that's 100 degrees. So you get 110 degrees. That's already a different story. Let's see. That's 43 degrees Celsius. Oh, that's really hot. 43. So 43 degrees Celsius, that's really hot. That's really hot. Now, if you would go outside and put your hand on the hood of your car, that's in the middle of the day, 110 degrees outside, right? 43 degrees Celsius, you wouldn't be able to leave your hand there long, right? Maybe a tenth of a second. That's really hot. And I don't think the hood of your car gets any hotter than the weather, right? It's not some sort of thing. So that's like really hot. So if you have food that's the heat of a Yad Soledes bowl, then it's permissible to put it on Shabbos on top of a pot, hatamuna b'gadim. In other words, on a pot that's not on the fire, but you wrapped it up in garments before Shabbat. It's not on the fire. You wrapped it up in garments before Shabbat. You can't wrap a pot in garments on Shabbat. You can't do that. It's called atmana. You wrapped it up in garments before Shabbat in order to keep its heat. V'lo yitztanen. So what do we have over here? Let's say you have a pot. You took it off the fire, and before Shabbat, boiling hot pot, and you wrapped it up so it keeps its heat. Keeps its heat. You are allowed to put food that's already hot. It's already hot, very hot. Yad Soledes bowl. You can put it on top of this other pot, not on the fire. The pot from below can't cook what's on top. It just keeps it warm. Even if the food on the top is not mevashel kol tzorcho, even if it's still a little bit uncooked, sheyesh bo mishum bishul, that if you would put it into, let's say, a kli rishon, directly into a kli rishon on Shabbat, then this food on the top, you would be guilty of boiling. Nevertheless, here, what are you doing? You're taking a piece of chicken that's, let's say, 3/4 cooked, still has to be 1/4 cooked, and it's warm, hot chicken, and you put it on top of, here, I'll give you an example. Your next door neighbor comes, knocks on your door on Shabbat. What's the problem? Said my gas went out of my oven, and here I have this chicken on top of the oven. I put it there before Shabbat, and it's cooking on Shabbat. No, when did you discover? The food is boiling hot. What can I do with it? It's not cooked yet. So you can say, you want me to cook it for Shabbos? That's forbidden. I can't cook. No, just keep it warm. This is good, no problem. What do? You take your pot off of the fire, put it on, take his pot and put on top of it. Even though that his pot is not cooked yet. Why? Because by putting it on top of another pot, it's impossible. Kalal lavoli de bishul, Komer. The bottom pot is not going to heat up your food sufficiently to boil it any further. Not even adding on the boiling. You're just keeping it hot. That's all. And even more, you can take your pot and put like dough around the top of it in order to keep the heat inside of it. If it's dough that it's been done before Shabbat, the dough that's been made before Shabbat. Okay, that's talking about if your bottom pot was on the fire and you took it off, or it was on the fire and you took it off before Shabbat and you wrapped it up with towels to keep it warm. But it is forbidden to wrap up a pot. Asur latmino tachat habagadim. It is forbidden to wrap up a pot that's hot on Shabbat. Even if you're just keeping the fire, keeping the heat. So you can't stress this enough. This is a thing that a lot of people make a big mistake about. You take food off of the stove on Shabbat, and you have guests, you serve the guests. And a lot of the guests, you say, where is the other family? Where are they? Oh, they said they're going to be late. They're going to be about an hour late. So what do? The pot you took off the fire, if you took it off the fire, you can't put it back on the fire again. You can't put it back on the blech or anything. You can't do that. Can't put it. You took it off the fire, that's it. Unless when you took it off the fire, you had in mind to put it back on and you kept it in your hand and you didn't sit it down anywhere. Those are laws earlier. That's called hachzara. Okay, but now let's go back to our story. You took the cholent pot off of the stove. You put it in the middle of the table. The guests are all taking. You see 10 guests didn't come. Where is the Grois family? Why aren't they here? Says, oh, I forgot to tell you, they're going to be here in another hour. Something happened in another hour. Well, another hour, the cholent is going to be cold by then. So what can we do? That's what they said. You'll have to eat cold cholent. Somebody gets a brilliant idea. Says, listen, if you wrap this pot up with towels, then that'll keep the heat in. Pretty good idea, right? Maybe from the laws of physics, it is thermodynamics. The pot will remain hot, but you just did a sin. You're not allowed to wrap a pot up on Shabbat. Can't do it, even if it's just to keep the heat in. You want to wrap a pot up in order to keep the heat in, you have to do it from before Shabbat. From before Shabbat. Take it off the fire, Shabbat. But before Shabbat, you're not allowed to wrap up a pot if that adds on heat. So in other words, if that pot is on the fire, then you can't wrap it up. We'll learn about Hatmana. Wrapping it up means all the sides and the top. Can't cover all the sides and the top. You want to put it around the sides, you can do it if you leave the top open. Okay. So that's what we learned over here, that if you take a pot off of the fire and put it down, you can put a boiling hot thing on top of it. But you can never wrap anything up on Shabbat, totally, even if it's not on the fire. Even if you only want to preserve the heat, can't do it. You can't wrap a thing up to surround it with towels or something like that. It's permissible if the towels don't actually touch the pot you're hiding. You'll learn Reish Nun Gimel. Maybe we'll learn those laws after this. Next law. Why doesn't it work for me? Why? All right, let's just go further here. But you are allowed to put a food that is really hot, yad selespe, on top of a pot that's not on the fire. That you can do. But even if that food is not completely, food on the top is not completely cooked. But if it is not that hot, if it's not yad selespe, you cannot put it on top of a pot which is warm enough that the top pot can be heated from the bottom pot until it becomes yad selespe. But you're not allowed to take a pot that is not 110 degrees hot and put it on top of a pot, even if it's not on the fire. And that lower pot will make the upper pot come yad selespe. That's the first opinion. We'll see. The Alter Rebbe doesn't agree with this. Then this is the same law with a boiler, which a boiler is so hot. We did this yesterday, but I want to go over it again. This is the law of a boiler. In Hebrew, they call it a kumkum. Shehu cham kol kach, which is so hot You can't put it on top of that either. But what are we talking about? If the top one is not yet boiled as much as it needs to be, then you got to watch out because you can't boil, you can't aid something to become boiled on Shabbat. But if the top one that you want to put on top of this pot that's not on the fire, if the top one, or you want to put it on top of the mecham or whatever it is, on top of the boiler, if the top pot is not boiled all its necessity, you can't do it. But if it is boiled as much as you need to, we're talking about now that the top one is not so hot. If you then called elishin is ma'at, just got a little bit cold. If the top food has yes been cooked totally, but it just cooled off to the point where it's not yad soletis boy, even though that it's not so hot that it's yad soletis bowl, let's say it's 90 degrees hot. But if it's hot enough that it's fit to eat because of its heat, then our custom is to be lenient. Even if the top food is wet. If the top food is wet and it's totally cold, you can't. If the top food is wet and it's yad soletis bowl and the bottom pot can't make it hotter, for sure it's okay. But here he's saying a chidush that if the top food that you're putting on, even if it's wet and it's not totally hot, but it has to be cooked totally, then you're allowed to put it on top of the bottom hot pot. Muter lanicho, it's permissible to put it on a pot or even on a mecham or even on top of a pot which is on the fire to warm it up a lot, because your warming up is not going to cook it totally. It's already cooked. What it is going to do is bring it from being just warm to being yad soletis bowl. Okay, but it has to be a little bit warm if it's wet. But if it's something that's dry and it's boiled totally, then even if it's totally cold and you take it out from the refrigerator, it's permissible to put it on top of a mecham, even if it makes the yad soletis bowl. And I had a question on this, and I did not ask anybody about this question, and namely that if the food is totally dry, let's say a boiled chicken, right, and it's totally dry. That's the only way you can put it on top of something if it's totally dry. It's totally dry, and it's cold, and you put it on top of the boiler, on top of the kumkum. So that, he says, is permissible. My question is, how can it be permissible? I mean, that's sort of like baking, because there's no liquid involved. And you can't bake something after you've boiled it. Okay, that's my question. You have to give me a 2-minute laboratory break. I'll be right back. We're going to do the next law. Here, look at the law in a second. Is this understandable what I'm saying? Let me go back. Well, just 1 minute. 1 minute. Okay. Are these laws being understood? Do you think you can? Is this clear to everyone? I mean, I've never really taught via Zoom before. Sometimes you can make diagrams and descriptions and things like that. And here, there is none. So, I mean, I hope this is coming across. We're talking about Kli Rishon and Kli Sheni, and a vessel that's not on the fire, and that the vessel that's Yad Soledes Bo. What does it mean? Mavushal called Tzorcho. I hope that this is clear. If not, then you can write it to me and maybe write me a note and I can try to make it clearer. And maybe I think there's a way also you can type things out, not on the chat here, and make it a bit clearer. Okay, let's do another law. One more law. Let me just skip this one. It's just saying that if food is totally cooked and it's totally dry, then you can put it on top of another pot. Here he's just talking, in order to explain this, I have to explain some of the other principles which are in Reish Nun Gimel, like Grufa and Katuma, which in a way is not really that relevant to us today because very few people put food directly on the fire nowadays. And all of the ovens are usually Grufa and Katuma. I don't know, maybe we can learn those laws if you want. Let's do the next one. All right, now we're learning the laws of a Kli Rishon and a Kli Sheni, and Irui Kli Sheni. We already touched on it a little bit. Again, a Kli Rishon is a vessel that's on the fire. If a Jew puts something that's not cooked into that vessel, when it's on the fire, or even when it's not on the fire, even when you remove it from the fire, if a Jew takes a vessel that has food in it that was on the fire or that was on the fire, and that food is still hot, and he puts some raw food into it or uncooked food, that's a sin from the Torah. That's an avera from the Torah. You're not allowed to take a Kli Rishon and put uncooked food into it. And if that Kli Rishon is on the fire, thank you, Okay, you can hear me now, right? Yes, yes. Bris. That's right. Zocher bris nemam brisochem mamroid. Okay, that's the blessing for the rainbow. All right, let's start over from the beginning. A kli rishon. What's a kli rishon? A kli rishon is a pot, a boiling pot that was on the fire, even if it's not now on the fire. Afilu achar sheheviru, even if you removed it from the fire. That's called a kli rishon, a first vessel, and it boils. All the time that pot is yad soletis boy, that is 110 degrees Fahrenheit, it boils. What do you mean it boils? I'll tell you what it means. It means like this. Therefore, it is forbidden to put inside of it, in this pot, this first vessel, anything, even spices. We said before that spices you can put into a second vessel, into klisheni, there's no problem. But in a first vessel, no way. And says the Rebbe that it's good not to put spices into a first vessel, a kli rishon, even if it's not cold. Any yad soletis bo. Why? Kadei lasot harchaka, in order to remind yourself and keep far away from sin. Harchaka v'sayag l'davar, to make a fence. So in other words, spices or other food that are not cooked, do not put into a kli rishon. And spices are special because they're more lenient. Nevertheless, even though they're more lenient, do not put it into a kli rishon, a pot which was on the fire and it is still hot. And now the Rebbe is saying, even if it's not yad soletis bay, you shouldn't put anything into a kli rishon, even though it's not a sin from the Torah. If it's not yad soletis bay, nothing cooks if it's not yad soletis bay. Don't put spices. But salt you can put into a kli rishon that's not on the fire. Why? Since you took it off the fire. Salt is okay. We're going to see it's not okay. Salt is okay. Because salt has to have so much cooking, just like the meat of an ox. Even though the meat of the ox you couldn't put in there, but nevertheless, Eino mizbashel, and it will only cook if it's directly on the fire. Nevertheless, actual meat of an ox, which we just compared to being very, very lenient, you cannot put into a kli rishon, even if it's not on the fire. Sha'af shabasar eino midbashel, that it's true, we just finished saying that a kli rishon that's not on the fire will not cook ox meat, but a lachluchis, there's liquid in this meat, right? It's wet, and this meat, it will boil, which is not the case with salt. Salt doesn't have any liquid, so you can put it in to a kli rishon that's not on the fire, not on the fire. Elim can, unless maybe this ox meat is totally dry, it has no liquid at all. I think there's in South America, South Africa, they have this bull tongue, right? It's totally dry, could be. Yeshon, some people say that salt is exactly the opposite. Not that salt is a thing that you don't have to be careful about at all. You can put salt into a vessel, kli rishon, no problem. If it's not on the fire, nah. Some people say exactly the opposite. Some people say that salt only requires a little bit of cooking, and it's forbidden to put it in a kli rishon that's not on a fire. In fact, it's forbidden to put it even a kli sheni all the time that's a yad soletis bowl. You want to be machmer tovel of bracha, someone who wants to be strict with himself. We'll see what type of salt it's talking about over here, but until you find out, don't do it. It won't be Shabbat. We'll find out tomorrow. Even if you put salt, even into a kli rishon, even it's really on the fire, that this is forbidden. Nevertheless, the salt is okay. It's okay because all you did, you just put a little bit of salt, and the salt is less than 60 of the fire. Some people say, no, can't do it. The salt gives a taste. The salt becomes forbidden. You can't eat the food until Motzi Shabbat. So what did you do? You had a pot of nice cholent on the fire, and you read this Shulchan Aruch, you didn't get to this last paragraph over here, and you figure you'll do your mother. You misunderstood also the paragraph because you can never put anything into a pot that's directly on the fire, but you decided you're going to do your mother a favor and you're going to put salt in the cholent. You took a little taste. Salt is not salty. There's a story like this, by the way, with Alter Rebbe. Not the fire. It wasn't on the fire. With the Rev Shlomo of Karlin. But in any case, here the food is on the fire. And you put a little bit of salt in the food, thinking that salt cannot be cooked. And this is a sin. You did a sin, did an Avera. But one opinion says, but okay, you can still eat the food because the salt is negated in 60 or whatever. Another opinion says, no, you can taste that salt because you can taste the salt and the salt is forbidden. So the whole thing is forbidden. What's the law? In this case, you can decide on your own. You want to be lenient, you've got to rely on this first opinion. You want to be strict, you have the second opinion. I think most people reading this would probably be strict unless you're really, really hungry. That's okay. Let us now go to Mishnah. Let's learn a little bit of Mishnah. Oh, let's see, will this work? I have a new oh, you do one minute, I have to let myself in here. Screen. Start now. Mishnah. All right. Okay, so we're learning the law of Eidim Zomamim. Strange law in the Torah that says that if two witnesses come in and testify against someone that he did something, stole money, that he owes money, damaged something, killed someone, and then afterwards comes in two counter witnesses that say that these first two witnesses were with us in a different place, then the law is you do to the false witnesses, to the first witnesses, what they wanted to do to the person they accused. Okay. And what if the first witnesses came in and they wanted to get someone killed? They came in and they said, we saw Shmerel kill Yitzchak. And they take him to court. And come in two other witnesses and they say, you couldn't have seen Shmerel kill Yitzchak. The day that Yitzchak was killed, you were with us in a totally different place. That's called Eidim Zomamim. In other words, not that the testimony is not good. The witnesses themselves are no good. That's called Eidim Zomamim, and you kill the witnesses. The first witnesses. Now we have the Mishnah, and the Mishnah says like this. Ein Eidim Zomamim. False witnesses are not killed. We're talking about this case where they tried to get someone killed. They testified falsely that Shmerel killed Yitzchak. And there come in two other witnesses and say, on that day that Yitzchak was killed, you were with us in a different place. No. Now, what does the judge say? Put them in chains. Take them to await their death row. So it says these false witnesses are not killed until the judgment is passed. In other words, they have to come in after the judge says that Shmerel is guilty. If they just come in, the first witnesses come in and we saw Shmerel kill Yitzchak. And they go and they get poor Yitzchak and they put him in prison and he's awaiting trial. And then there come in witnesses and say that you're lying, right? Then there come in witnesses, then they get killed. But if they come in after the person is killed, after Shmerel is killed, they're coming to witnesses and say, oh, you killed Shmerel. And because of these two witnesses, they were with us in a different place. It says that the witnesses are only killed before the law is decided. Before the law is carried out. Yeah. Okay. And also, like I said before the decision, before the decision, like I said before the decision, that's what I thought. So if two witnesses come in and they say, we saw Shmerel kill Yitzchak, and they go and take Shmerel and put him in jail, and before the judges make their decision that Shmerel is guilty, because two witnesses against him, before they make the decision, come in two other witnesses and say, these two first witnesses were with us in a different place, then they don't get killed. Only after the judgment is decided. Because the Tzedukim, they used to say, Ad sheyeh hareg. They used to say that you only kill the false witnesses after the falsely accused person is killed. Like it says, nefesh tachas nefesh. Like the law says, one soul in the place of another one. In other words, what they actually did to the falsely accused person, that is what is done to these false witnesses. But it has to be, that's what the Tzedukim said, only after the falsely accused man is killed. And then there come in the witnesses, the Eidim, to make them the Mazamim. Then the Eidim Zomim get killed. That's what the Tzedukim said. Omer lem Chachamim. The Chachamim said, "Halo kavar ne'amar." Is it not so that it says, "Vasitem lo kasher zamam lasot"? There's a pasuk in Devorim that says, "You do to these false witnesses what they wanted to do, not what they did. They wanted Shmerel to get killed. It says you do what they wanted him to do. Hari achiv kayim." And here, so if so, we see from the sentence that it means that the accused man still must be alive. Im kain, if so, why does it say lama ne'amar nefesh tachas nefesh? Why does it say, like what you said, that you repay a soul for another soul? In other words, you killed the person, then you kill the false witnesses. Because you might think, you might think that a person will get killed as soon as they receive the witnesses. Talmud lomer nefesh tachas nefesh. Einu nergayim ad she'gomer adin. When do they finish the testimony? Only after the decision has been made. So in other words, there's a very short amount of time when you actually kill the false witnesses. The false witnesses are killed only after the decision has been made, right? The court says that because of the witness, the first two witnesses, testimony of the first two witnesses, we sentence Shmerel to death. And then there come in the second set of witnesses, then we kill the first set, the false set. But if the second set of witnesses come in before the judges decide, or they come in after the sentence was carried out, then they're not killed. That's the law. Strange law, but true. False witnesses are not killed if these false witnesses come in and they testify that Shmuel killed someone. And the Eidim, the witnesses that come to Zamem, that come, the second set of witnesses, if they come in al echad sha'arag at the nefesh, if they came, the first set of witnesses come in, and they say that Shmuel killed Yitzchak, v'hu zaman, v'hu maz, v'hu zmu, and they are proven to be false by the second set, Einu nergim, they don't get killed. They don't get killed. We said that they do get killed. It says, no, they only get killed ad shi'igmar. It has to be that the second set of witnesses come after the decision has already been made. Ad al shall anidon lehareg, until he is judged that he has to kolomer, in other words, that they don't, something is going on over here, that they're not killed unless they are, the first set of witnesses are not killed until after the judges decide to kill the accused, according to their witnesses. Why? Because the tzaddukim say no, that the false witnesses only get killed after the accused man is actually killed. They say only if Shmerel, poor Shmerel, he gets killed unjustly, and then witnesses come in to disprove the first witnesses. That's what the tzaddukim say, like it says nefesh tachas nefesh, or nefesh b'nefesh. In other words, you only kill the false witnesses if they actually cause the falsely accused to be killed. Then you kill them. That's what the tzaddukim said. But the chachamim said back to the tzaddukim, but it says, there's a sentence that says clearly in the Torah, not like what you said. It says, yet you kill the first witnesses, you do to them what they tried to do, zomen lasot. In other words, the person is still alive. Kolomer milashon hakatuv. That what it says. Kasher zomem lasot. This seems. One second. You have to wait for a second. Something is going on outside of my house. Excuse me, please. I'll be back in 1 minute. Sorry. There was some sort of a strange argument going on outside of my house between the workers. There's workers that are trying to build something. Okay. Where are we now? Oh, here I am back here, back in the saddle. Let's go back to this thing. What did I do? What did I do? Okay. So when are the false witnesses killed? Strangely enough, they're only killed after the judge sentences the falsely accused man to death, but before the punishment is carried out. Like we explained before. Shekain mishenig. Because after the judgment is already finished, then the accused is considered to be like he's dead. He's accused. He's already sentenced. It's just a matter of carrying it out. Harry, that's what it's called, one soul for another soul. But after the person is killed, here's the interesting thing. After the falsely accused man, Shmerel, is actually taken out and killed, and then the second set of witnesses come and say the first set of witnesses were with us in a different place, then there's no din hazama. Like it says, kasher zamam. It says you only do what they tried to do, not what they actually did. And this is also learned in Abraita. What does it say? Lo hargu neharagim. You don't kill if they don't. Lo hargu neharagim. If until you kill the accused, the sentence before you kill him, then the false witnesses get killed if they're proven to be false. If you do kill him, then they're not killed. What is done to them? It's a very major problem. What is exactly done to them? You'll have to take them to court and false testimony, but they're not really considered to be murderers. They didn't actually kill anybody they just killed somebody with their testimony. This law of Edim Zomim is a very strange law. Okay. Let's do two more. Let's do one more law, and then that'll be for today. Yeah, if you want to, we can do this. Here's a very interesting explanation why this bizarre law is. Now, the whole law of Edim Zomim, like we said before, doesn't make any sense because two witnesses come in and they say that Shmerel killed Yitzchak. And then that's the first set of witnesses. Then a second set of witnesses come in and they say, no, the first set of witnesses is with us. They were with us in a different place. Why believe the second set? Why believe them? The first witnesses, they're also two witnesses. They're also testifying. What's wrong with their testimony? No, the second set of witnesses come and they say, you were with us in a different place. The first set of witnesses could say, you're lying. What are you talking about? You're falsely accusing us. But that's the way, and we're going to see that it even goes more. We'll see later on, like we talked about before. The witnesses that come in the end, those are the ones that we believe. It's strange. So that's strange. It doesn't make any sense. Here it also doesn't make any sense. There's other laws, there's other facts of this laws that don't make any sense. Okay. The Ramban, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, he explains, he sort of gives a little reason for this. He says that if you already kill the falsely accused man, then the false witnesses are not killed. Why? Says this is the language of the Ramban. Something that's a little bit difficult. This law of the Edim Zomamim, Begazera Tashalit, this is only the decree of God. when two people come and they testify about Reuven that he killed someone, and then there come two others and they say, no, the first witnesses they were with us in a different place. So the Torah says that the first witnesses should get killed. Why? Because in the merit of Reuven, I mean, they really didn't do anything that they should get killed for. They didn't kill anybody. In the merit of Reuven, that he was really innocent and he was a tzaddik. In other words, he never did any sin. So therefore, it's sort of like God takes revenge on these first false witnesses. If Reuven, the accused murderer, was really guilty and he should have been killed, then God would not have saved him. In other words, this is a miracle from God that the second witnesses come in and prove the first witnesses that they couldn't have seen it. They were in a different place. Like it says, Lo atzdik rasha. Like God says, I will not make an evil person clean. But if so, then it doesn't make any sense. If Reuven already got killed, so then it must be emes kol asher heidu olav rishon. If God arranged it that Reuven did get killed from this false testimony, so then we say no. Then it's a sign that he must have deserved it. Ki vavono meit. Why? Because ilu hayatzadik, because if he really was 100% innocent, God would not have allowed him to get killed. Strange words. And even more, God would not let these judges, who judges are supposed to be holy people, they wouldn't allow them to make such a mistake. Like it says, Ki mishpat le'elohimhu, because the judgment is in the hands of God. In other words, there are a lot of requirements to be a judge in Judaism, a lot of requirements. But if they have these requirements, it just makes them a vessel for God's judgment to come through them. It's not that they are the judges. So therefore, if he actually gets killed, says the Ramban, that is a sign that he deserved it, and he really would. Some people explain that it's because of kavod based din. Shomru kol ha'am, all the people say that if the court, She'omru kol ha'am, that what's going to happen? Shmerel gets executed, comes in a second set of witnesses and says the first set of witnesses were wrong. And now you take the first set of witnesses and kill them. But whoa, what does it mean? It means it's announcing to everybody that the judges made a mistake. Shadanu nefesh lamisa, that they killed somebody improperly. Therefore, everyone will say that the courts are not 100% reliable. From this will come a tremendous damage to the Torah. That's another opinion, another impression. So, very interesting. There happens to be a story, if I'm not mistaken, it's Rabbi Shimon ben Shetach. You can check this out. I think that it is. And two false witnesses came and testified against his son. They waited around until his son was, who knows, asleep at home. There was nobody there. And there was no one to testify where his son was. And they just waited around until somebody killed somebody and they couldn't find the murderer. And they came into court and they testified in front of his father that he was the murderer. And there was no witnesses they arranged that no one could see them. They weren't, they themselves hid themselves away. The false witnesses hid themselves away somewhere. And this man was killed. The one that was killed, they waited until someone was killed with, very unclear circumstances. They couldn't find the murderer. And it happened to be that it coincided when Shimon ben Shetach's son happened to be, he was sleeping at home or whatever it was. He told everybody he was sick. Anyway, they came and they testified that he killed someone. And Shimon ben Shetach's son said, I'm innocent. His father said, what can I do? It says in the Torah that two witnesses come. And, these two witnesses they're believable. There must have been two witnesses that they'd never been caught lying before. And his son said, listen, may it be that my death does not atone for any of my sins, because I'm innocent. But he had no choice. He had to kill his own son. He had his son killed. And so there's of course always loopholes in everything, and this happens to be one of them. According to the Ramban, however, we just said there's no loopholes. If the judges decide that someone has to get killed, it must be somehow or other that he deserved it, maybe in this incarnation, maybe in a previous incarnation, who knows? As we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Be with us 8:15 tomorrow, and we'll learn more. Have a good day, everyone. God bless you all.